Testing, testing, testing. Can everyone hear me? And can you see my screen? Put a 1 in the chat if you can hear me and you can see my screen. We always have to do an audio check before we get started to make sure that people can hear us. Put a 1 in the chat. Okay. Okay, perfect. Welcome everyone to the Genesis Gateway Roundtable discussions. Thank you all so much for taking the time out to join us this evening. I believe, let me see, we are on, what session is this, folks? I think we're on session number 5, right? I think so. All of these weeks are beginning to run together. I believe we're on session number 5. I believe. Don't quote me on that. So, thank you all again for joining tonight's session. We're super excited to have you. Tonight's discussion is going to be centered around, let's see, what are we talking about tonight, folks? What are we talking about tonight? Let's see here. Our topic for tonight is going to be overcoming the poverty mindset as it relates to generational conditioning. All right. Now this is a big one. This is a big one because when you have a poverty mindset, it causes people to ask questions or say things like, quote unquote, people like us don't have money like that. Where is this coming from? Why does this come about? How can you break those generational ties, right? So we're going to dig into that discussion for this evening. I do want to remind you all that you are joining this call. You're going to be hearing some information, and you are explicitly responsible for how you choose to use the information that is being disseminated on this call. All right, and the beneficial owners are held harmless from the actions that you choose to take as a result of the information that you are hearing. All right, and so this call is a trust relationship. When you come onto these calls in this particular channel, or you've been connected with us, just know that you are entering into a trust relationship, right? So just please keep that in mind as you engage with us and you consume our content. All right, so without further ado, I am going to hand the floor over to Mikael. Mikael, are you there?
Yes, I am there. I'm just trying to make sure this audio is set up correctly. All right, there we go.
Oh, that's much better. Yes.
To go. So, good evening, everyone. Greetings, peace, and love. Tonight we're looking at a topic or a series of topics, I would say, that everybody should a heading. It will be generational conditioning. Now, I'm warmed up a conversation with a couple.
Mikael, they seem to be cutting.
Yeah, Mikael, your audio is going in and out. I don't know why it's a little choppy. I have to make an adjustment.
Yeah, we're only getting every second word.
Okay, let's see. Let me check and see. Let's see. Get it a little better. I'm glad you were. Hey, there's no issues with the audio this evening. All right. So just let me know if it sounds better as we move forward. Definitely want to make sure everything that I'm sharing this evening is heard. because of course this is also going to be shared with those in the social media world, on the internet. Can you hear me clearly now? Does it
Yes,
sound better?
yes, it sounds the same, but at least you're not cutting in and out. So we'll let you know if a problem arises with your audio.
Okay. So I was having a conversation earlier, and this is, I would say, a carryover of the conversation earlier. And the conversation earlier was all about the conditioning that we have endured, but yet we have never overcome the conditioning that this world has placed on us as debtors. And I say debtors because that is the mindset of those that we come in contact with. That is the mindset of those on a call today. Even if you are transitioning to a creditor mindset according to Scripture. And so this conditioning is something we must overcome. We have to. We have no choice. Because if we want to find ourselves individually with the Most High, we have to change our mindset. Now, Scripture talks about a renewed mindset. We always have our own understanding of what a renewed mindset is, but we should, of course, lean not to our own understanding in this matter. And if we're not leaning to our own understanding in this matter, what does that look like? That means that there is a renewed mindset that we need to be successful, to be knowledgeable, and to be on one accord with the Most High. How do we do that? What does that mean? You know, the Most High, He is a creditor. We are created in His image. So we should be on one accord with the Most High. And if that's our focus, then that renewed mindset basically means going from a debtor mindset to a creditor mindset. That's going to be very important. Now, the conditioning is felt our entire life. Even as a child in school, we're being conditioned. Our children are being conditioned to believe and think a certain way. So this is not something that happens when we turn 18. This is something that starts at the very beginning. As soon as we step into this world, the conditioning begins. So as a child, and think about this. There's several scriptures that we can touch on. But when I was a child, I thought as a child. I acted like a child. And sadly, we are still thinking and acting like a child, like a minor, which is a concern or should be a concern of everyone on this call and those within the sound of my voice. Because you are a minor, you are a debtor, and that conditioning begins in school. Everything that they teach you in school, everything that you learned in school, it's fictional. Majority of it is fictional. You know, I used to like the civics classes, the government classes, the math classes. Those classes, it's hard to manipulate all of that information. But a lot of the history was actually manipulated. And so what we were receiving was not always the truth, but it was all about conditioning. Now, think about this. A slave has to be conditioned. So let's go back and look at the slaves that were transported to North America. They were these slaves were royalty. They were the original children of Israel. They knew they were royalty. And so when they brought them over here to North America, they had to break them. They had to take them and separate them. And as they created more children, new generations came in, they had to take the young groups and separate them from the older groups because they didn't want the older groups to tell them who they were. The slave masters, the taskmasters, were in charge of telling them who they were. Now, I had a conversation, and some of you may not know about this movie, but there was a movie back in the late 70s, early 80s. It was called Roots, Roots. And it was about the slave trade. And there was a gentleman in there that knew who he was before he reached North America. And he would not let go of that title, of his name that associated him with his people and his heavenly Father. And so they would beat him and force him to accept their name that they gave him. Now that's like a Babylonian name. And they beat him with a whip till he was almost dead. And he never gave up. He never let go of his name, his original name. He would not accept a Babylonian name whatsoever. So that's how bad the conditioning is today. Now, do they bring a whip out? No. But they use the same tactics today to force you into believing what they want you to believe, to remain in a box, closed in, so they can control you. It's all about control. So the conditioning that we're all experiencing is overwhelming. That begins in school, all through school, elementary, middle school, they call it middle school, and then high school, and even college. Now, as we go down this path, we're going to look at what that conditioning is at each level, because it's very important that we kind of touch on the conditioning over a long-term period of time. So the generational conditioning is powerful because you can take your great-great-grandmother and how they conditioned her, and they learned that if they condition her correctly, she will do the work for them to condition her children. And those children will also do the work for them to also condition their children. And it will trickle down from one generation to the next generation. And that is what's been happening all these years. So not only are they conditioning us with our own family members, they are also conditioning us with all the marketing, with all of the advertisements, with all the information that we come in contact with. There is a form of conditioning that is associated with it all. So when you look at generational conditioning and claiming an inheritance, that's going to be important as well. But most people don't understand what a true inheritance is. They think a true inheritance is what their parents have left them. And that kind of looks like assets. It might be an insurance policy where they are the beneficiary. It's all entities that they control. If it's a car, who has the original documents on the vehicle? The state. So they're controlling that vehicle. If it's a home, they do everything in their power to make sure that you cannot retain that home. They give you a 30-year mortgage. That is a form of conditioning. Who in their right mind would be willing to make a mortgage payment every month, every year for 30 years? It doesn't even make sense. But over that 30-year period of time, you have been conditioned to accept that because your parents also accepted it and their parents accepted it as well. So looking at it from that perspective, inherited scripts shape money choices, family beliefs about who we are economically, program risk tolerance. It affects pricing and, of course, stewardship. But break the cycle that you are in. How do you do that? What happens in order for you to break that cycle? Because I call it a curse. You can call it a cycle. I call it a curse, a generational curse passed down from one generation to the next. The tools require to condition you a will. We look at that will and we really, truly believe that we all need a will. What we need is a trust, more so than a will. You can take a will and you can deposit that will into a trust, but you cannot deposit a trust into a will. Now, it's important to understand the roles when it comes to a trust: a grantor, trustee, beneficiary. Those are common titles that we're used to in the public. But there are other titles that are not so familiar when it comes to the public, and we'll get into those as well. But there are some patterns that we have to look at in order to step outside of those patterns to really see what's going on. Now, Nadiva, help me here with this. When it comes to stewardship across generations, I know scripture says, train up a child in the way that they should go. But how do you see the stewardship from generation to generation and applying the scripture, train up a child in the way that they should go? And also, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children.
Okay, right. So when we're talking about generational conditioning, I look at it from another perspective, right? Generational conditioning and the scriptures that you have named, train up a child in a way that you should go, and when they grow old, they will not depart. Okay. So part of that training as it stands today is not coming from our elders or our ancestors that way. Um, Conventionally, yes, but unconventionally, no, as it relates to asset protection, heirship, generational wealth. None of these things are being trained. Our children are not being trained on these things in our community. Many of the people learn about these types of things when they're in their 30s and 40s, where they have had a substantial amount of life experience, and they get to the point where they realize something is wrong, right? And so, by that time, the child is grown. And there has been a series of events that has taken place to sort of kind of deceive or dupe the child, who is now an adult, out of their beneficial owner heirship, right? So you spoke earlier about wills and trusts. Okay. Many people don't realize that they need to set up their beneficiaries. And you mentioned the two roles inside of a trust, which is a grantor, I think you said trustee or beneficiary. But when you're looking at your heirship, we have to look at it. Yes, you're looking at it from a beneficiary perspective, but a beneficial owner is a type of beneficiary. And so when we're speaking about generational conditioning, many people don't even realize that they are a beneficiary or a beneficial owner to anything at all. So let me ask you all the question that's here on this call. How many of you realize that you are an heir to something? And I'm not talking about an heir in terms of what your family has left you, but an heir in terms of those values that you did not know exist. Put a 1 in the chat if you know and acknowledge that you are an heir. And if you don't know that, then just put I don't know. Just put that I don't know. Okay. And I want you all on TikTok to go ahead and put your answer in the chat as well, because we're streaming on TikTok as well. Put a 1 in the chat because I want to see where you all are coming from. It's like many people know that there is something wrong, but they don't realize that they have an heirship that needs to be claimed. An heirship that needs to be claimed. All right. So when we're talking about generational conditioning, yes, we know that it's a problem, but how do you go back in time and rectify or reconcile that generational conditioning that has taken place your entire life? How do you do that? How do you do that? How do you go back and pull forth those values that were non-existent to your ancestors because they had no clue due to generational conditioning, and now here you are in the Gregorian year of 2025 and you're trying to figure this out, but you still want to know the truth, right? And you want to figure out a way to pull forth those values. Because generational conditioning can really hurt you. But here's the thing. If you know how to time travel with your documents, you can go backwards and rectify that which was done to your ancestors. And one of the pivotal points in time that I'm speaking about is 1933. Who all knows what happened in the year 1933? Put it in the chat. What happened in 1933? What happened? Right? So everything, essentially, not everything, most things start from that point. Most things financially starts from that point. 1933. What happened in 1933? All right, somebody says the Great Depression. All right. Okay, so back in 1933, we know that there was a surrender of the gold. Right? Isn't that what happened? Your ancestors were tricked into giving up their heirship and handing in their gold, which was the values and assets that they had during that time. So many of you whose ancestors went through that type of scenario, you're sitting here in 2025 and you're looking at your scenario right now saying, okay, I don't have enough money for this. I don't have enough money for that. You're looking at it from a point of lack instead of looking at it as a beneficial owner. Now, many people don't lack the money. They just simply lack the position. Beneficial owner is a position, right? It's not emotional, not motivational, not a coincidence, not a hustle. The beneficial owner position, you have two sides to it. So there can be a legal side, there can be an equitable side, and there can be a fiduciary side. But here's the problem. You have to be able to understand the distinction. Because if you do not understand, you're going to spend your entire life asking the wrong questions. We had a scenario that came up today with someone where they were seeking and asking questions about a name change. Anybody in the chat tell me what is the problem with doing the name change with the courts. What is the number one problem that you see in going to the court and requesting a name change? Put it in the chat. Somebody hit it dead on. They said permission. Beneficial owners don't ask for permission. They're not asking that question at all. So when you're thinking about or talking about generational conditioning, that's the number one thing that has to be dispelled. Nobody should ask for permission. We have been conditioned to always ask massa for permission. Ooh, can I do this? Ooh, can I do that? Can I take money out of my bank account? Can I change my name? Can I open up this credit card? Can I transfer? We're always asking for permission instead of asserting ourselves as the beneficial owner heir that we know that we are. And I may have answered your question. I don't know if I did, Mikael. I just sort of kind of just ran off, right? But I need people to understand how important it is for them to really realize the position that they hold, and that every single transaction that you conduct, you are the source. I want you all to put it in the chat. I am the source. I'm the source. There is nothing that happens without you. There's nothing that happens without your signature. There's nothing that happens without the SS individual's name. There is nothing that happens unless you sign a piece of paper transferring your beneficial equitable interest into the legal in the form of a secured interest or security interest to the fiction so that they can facilitate banking on their end, but they can't do it without you because you are the source. How many of you all want to know how to get yourself set up as the source, where you're expressing it on paper and you know who you are and you have no fear when you're walking into a courtroom, when you're doing your banking at the highest level? How many of you want to know how to set yourself up as the source? Now, you already are the source, but you have to know how to express it, right? You got to know how to express it. You have to know the power that you have. You have to step into your heirship, and you can't do that if you're stuck to that generational conditioning that was passed down to you by your parents. You just simply can't do it. There's a lot of things that you have to unlearn. There's some new stuff that you have to learn, new items that you have to learn. You have to recondition your mind to, it's sort of kind of like when you do a software update on your computer or on your phone, right? You know that your phone is not going to properly work unless you allow the software update to come through. Is that a fair assessment? It's going to start doing weird things. It's going to slow down. Your computer is going to start acting funny. It's going to start glitching. Your phone is going to start glitching. What in the world do you think is happening with your brain when you reject new information and you're holding on to old ideology? It's literally the same thing. If you're not upgrading the software of the mind and you're not placing those old outdated items in your recycle bin and deleting those things and replacing it with new and updated information, your mind is going to be stuck. That's where that generational conditioning comes in. You're going to be stuck, and you're going to continue to try to pull from old information to try to make things work in 2025. And you won't know where to go. You won't know who to talk to. You won't know where to look. You won't know how to get started because you're stuck. How many of you want to come out of that rat race? Because that's literally what it is right now. It's a rat race. Finances, family, all these things make a difference right now. And your spirituality is going to have a hand in dealing with this generational conditioning as it relates to your finances. Now, here's the thing. When you're dealing with the beneficial owner positioning and you're operating in the proper capacity, which is through a trust, you're not going to be asking the wrong question of, am I supposed to be doing this? Or can I have this? You're going to be able to, once you get the right education, because you do know that everything is about education, right? You got to be educated. But once you properly step into your beneficial owner heirship, you're going to begin to ask the right questions, right? Who holds legal title? Who holds equitable title? Who is the fiduciary? Are they administering the estate pursuant to their assigned fiduciary duty? Who's the trustee? Who's the grantor? You want to be able to immediately identify when there is a trust relationship at hand, because there is always a trusted operation. I can tell you that. And you'll keep hearing me say this. You'll keep hearing us repeat a lot of the same information, because we need to drill it into you, because a lot of people just simply won't read and they don't study. Every single transaction that you conduct every day, you should always be looking to try to identify who are the parties to the trust, because it's there. Doesn't matter if you don't see it or not, it's there. And that is one of the things that is essential to stepping into your beneficial ownership capacity. You have to begin to identify what's happening. Right? There's always those positions. It's going to be the grantor, the trustee, the beneficiary, and the beneficial owner. Every single time. Is this helpful to you all? Is it making sense? You have to let me know. Mikhail, you still there? I think you might be transitioning.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, perfect. I didn't want to keep going without you. So feel free to come back,
Definitely. This conditioning, I just need to go back to this conditioning. You have to understand what this conditioning does. Over a period of time, the conditioning causes you to believe a lie. A lie that you will fight tooth and nail for, not even realizing it's not even the truth. And so you will fight so much for the lie that you will actually reject the truth. And so when someone comes into your life to enlighten you, you reject them and everything that they're sharing with you, because you have accepted not only the lie, but everything that goes along with the lie. And so it makes it hard for you to overcome in life, because you're moving in the wrong direction. So what happens when you have been conditioned is this. The natural, normal flow of energy, of knowledge, organically has been removed from the table. And when that's removed from the table, you don't move the same way. You don't think the same way. You don't act the same way. Normally, if you look at this from a psychological point of view, because that's what it is, psychologically, they have you accepting the truth and accepting the lie and rejecting the truth. That type of conditioning causes you not to move in a natural manner. And let me give you an example. If it's 1 o'clock right now, we know that in an hour it's going to be 2 o'clock. We know in 2 hours it's going to be 3 o'clock, and so on and so forth. That's natural. For time to move from where it is now and go forward. But this conditioning is psychological. So what does it do to your mind? It causes your mind to go backwards. So instead of moving forward, you're moving backwards. So if it's 12 o'clock now, you're moving towards 11 o'clock. And then from there, you're moving towards 10. And as a child, you're being conditioned, and that change from 12 o'clock to 11 o'clock may take a whole year. And then from 11 o'clock to 10 o'clock, they take another year. But as you get older, you will reach a certain point where that clock is moving so fast backwards that it's moving without you even doing anything. They have you right where they want you. And you don't have the ability at that point to stop the momentum. And like I said, it's psychological. And so when we come in and try to share information with you, the truth, you reject the truth because it goes against your programming. And so it takes a period of time for you to get to a point where you can say, I can accept what you said, but I have so much conditioning. I have to unlearn what I've learned in order to receive what it is that you're sharing with me. That is the problem that we're having today in the world that we live in. And so we have to be patient. Why? Because psychologically, you've been programmed and you don't even know it. That's scary. To be programmed and conditioned and not even know it. And the majority of people today are in that scenario. They think they know something, but what they know is how to play checkers. They are not even playing chess. Because you cannot play chess when your programming has you going backwards psychologically from 12 to 11 to 10 to 9. You don't have the ability to play chess. You're not on their level. And you don't have any knowledge to back up anything. The only knowledge you have is what they allowed you to have. And that's the only knowledge that you get. Now, earlier, I was talking to a few people. It wasn't planned. It just happened. And things like that happened. And we were talking, I was telling them, similar to what we're talking about now. And I told them, I said, listen, you've had the opportunity to change your life ever since 1933. Many people in this country were prohibited from buying homes. You know, there was a movie that came out a few years ago called The Banker. And in the movie, they were trying to help minorities or the melanated community be homeowners. And they prohibited them from buying homes. They knew the benefit in that, and they did not want the melanated community to get that benefit, to know what it feels like to be a homeowner, to own land. They didn't want them. They wanted them to continue to rent from them their entire life from one generation to the next. Do you know today there are still generations that will not buy land, that will not buy a home? They will rent today like they did 60 years ago. That's conditioning. Some of your family are like that. If I looked in some of your family today, I'm sure I could find some that have the same mindset. They will rent for the rest of their life. They don't recommend you purchase a home. They don't recommend you buy any land. They don't want you to do that. They want you to be just like them. Misery loves company. So where are you today? Are you still holding on to the lies? Are you ready to move forward with the knowledge, the type of knowledge that sets you apart from the debtor, that sets you apart from the slave mentality or the conditioning on the slaves or the programming? Are you willing to let go of the lies in order to accept the truth? Because that's going to be very important moving forward. Some people don't have the patience to deal with people in that manner. They just don't. You know, when you're giving somebody or sharing the truth with somebody and they reject it, most of the time, you're just going to continue to move forward. Leave them alone. Move to the next person. until they get to a point where they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. You have to allow them to get to that point, because until they get to that point, they are not going to listen to a word that you have to say. And so over the years, you've learned that there's a group that you're going to be focused on. Not the group that's still holding on to the lies. It's the group that have rejected the lie and are looking for the truth. And you have that truth. So some people that are listening tonight, you're still holding on to the lies. You think it's going to work one day, and it never will. So you hold on to those lies until you get sick and tired of being sick and tired. But the other group who has already rejected the lies because they know it doesn't work. You know, you lived your life. You've been out here dealing with finances. You've been out here paying bills that you feel in your heart that you shouldn't be paying. And you're ready to hear the other side. And that's what this call is about. The other side. The answers that they don't want you to have, that you don't know. And that's why we're here this evening. We want to share those answers with you this evening. So if anybody wants to hear about those answers this evening, put a 10 in the chat, because that's what we want to talk about. And those are the ones we want to talk to. We don't want to actually waste time with those who are still holding on to the lies. That would be a waste of our time, energy, and potentially money. But the ones we do want to talk to are the ones who are awake. Because those are the ones that can change their life by making a basic decision. What is that decision? To receive the truth. That's it. Just receive the truth. The truth will set you free. We've heard that before. So what does that look like? Nadiva, did you want to share a little bit about what that looks like when you are in receivership mode?
Yes, absolutely. Now, here's the thing. Let me ask this question first. How many of you that are watching or listening does not have a basic trust structure in place? Just put a 2 in the chat for me so that I know how many people out there are not operating through some sort of trust vessel. I need to ask this question because that's going to drive the conversation, speaking about receivership that Mikhail just brought out. How many of you do not have some sort of trust structure in place? And I'm not talking about the Sesta KV trust. No, that's not something that you created. Something that you created, that you're operating out of, that you are, you're occupying one of the positions of that particular trust, and you communicate through the trust every single time. How many of you do not? Okay. I think I said did I say put a 2 in the chat? Put a 2 in the chat if you are not operating through a trust. Okay, so everybody on this call has the even if it's just the basic trust structure in place that you're operating through. When I say operating through, that means everything that you do financially or otherwise, you are communicating and or operating through your trust. Because some people have a trust, but it's just sitting on the shelf. Some people have it, but they don't know how to use it. Some people have it, but they don't know how to communicate through it. This is important because here's why. When you go out and you go do a closing on a house, or you go sign for a vehicle loan, or you go open up a credit card, or you go get a personal loan, every consumer credit transaction that you engage in, you are in a constant and perpetual state of receivership as grantee to that trust. You're always being given something to sign. Here, sign here, sign here, sign here. They're always after your signature. You have to ask yourself a question: why are they always asking for your signature? You're in receivership just by being born as grantee. And you don't hear grantee out there in the public like that because it's the private side of the trust. You always hear grantor, meaning you're giving something. OR gives, EE receives. Grantee receives, grantor gives. So if you go and look at your mortgage documents, for those of you that have a mortgage, and you look at how they listed you on the deed of trust, they listed you as the grantor. But how can you give something that you have never received? Grantee is receiving. So one of the first things that a person needs to do to begin the process of correcting the record is set up their grantee positioning. Nothing as it relates to your process, whatever that process may be, can be done without the grantee in position first. You have to receive before you can give. You're in a constant state of receivership. So the grantee is the party to the trust that steps on the scene to begin the process of correcting the record. The grantee is the individual that places all of the fiduciaries in place to administer the estate in the way that it needs to be administered. The grantee appoints the trustee and places all of those components in position for record correction. That's the grantee. Nothing happens without the grantee. So you have to get yourself set up to where you are in receivership, meaning when a financial institution or a bank gives you a document to sign, you're receiving trust res in your trust as grantee. And you have to know how to express that, because if you don't express the trust first up front, that relationship is automatically going to default to debtor-creditor. And they are placing you on the debtor-creditor side, they're placing you in the fiduciary trustee position with the obligation to perform every single time. And you agree to that because you didn't accept the res as trustee up front first. A lot of what is happening out here is by way of operational law and legal presumption. You're presumed to be the trustee with the responsible party to pay all day, every day, because you didn't express the trust up front. And so you're trustee to their constructive trust instead of grantee to your own trust. Let me ask you all a question. Let me ask you all a question. What is legal? What is legal? What is legal? What is the legal side of the ledger? What do you consider to be legal? And I'm talking about, truth and fiction. Okay, good. Someone says fiction. Okay. You identify that legal is fiction. So when you go and create a relationship with a financial institution, which is on the legal side, which is it's being governed according to the laws, the codes, and the statutes, and the banking code, that's fiction, right? But here's the thing. All of these agreements and everything that you are signing are being deposited into your trust that you have not expressed because you don't know how to do that yet. And so when you're in receivership, every piece of paper that you receive is being deposited into your trust. It's an asset. It's considered an asset to your trust. And so you have to take that asset and convert it. You got to convert it. Convert that res over to values that you can pull. And due to the generational conditioning, none of these principles are being taught. banking, modern money mechanics, how trusts work. None of these things are being taught. And so for that reason, there's so much lack, and there is man-made created or man-made poverty. And so they've duped you out of your beneficial owner heir position so that you don't know that all of those values that have been activated by way of your signature on that contract belong to you. And so you're dealing with reimbursement, recoupment, reversionary interest, all of these things that are designed to push the values back to the grantee when that trust is being properly administered. And it's just simply not happening due to this generational conditioning that we're speaking about tonight. And so we have to break the cycle, and there has to be a shift in the mindset. And the only way that that's going to happen, two ways that that can actually happen, is by conversion of the spirit and education. And so you have to open yourself up to receive paperwork as grantee, and you can receive wisdom, information, and education on the secular side that's going to help you make the right decisions and stop asking the wrong questions. And so none of this is emotional, people. This is all facts. You know, this is just the way that it is. A lot of people are suffering because they just simply don't know. Right? And so you have children that are growing up believing that they're the only way is to go into survival mode and not stewardship of a trust that they should have created or should have been party to as soon as they stepped out of the age of minority into the age of majority, regardless of whatever age that was. It can be 18 or higher, right? But a lot of people are just simply not being taught how to properly steward what is waiting for them. So back in 1933, when your ancestors gave up that gold, they were tricked into giving up their position, their equitable position, right? They gave up the assets to the fiction and were handed a piece of paper that was supposed to be an equivalent to what it was that they handed in. But guess what? Your ancestors back then, even though they gave up the gold, many of them did not renounce their heirship. And so the gold that was given up in 1933 was placed in a trust and is waiting for you. The values associated with that gold is waiting for you to come back and claim. But you can't do that as a United States citizen. Let's get back to the grantee. The grantee's job, this is one of the grantee's job, is to make sure that there is documented evidence that ties you back to your direct line ancestor that gave up the gold in 1933 so that you can claim those values. And this is a really real thing. This is like a real thing, right? And so many people, they depend on the Constitution. I don't know why people only think about the Constitution, but there were treaties and other legislative documents that were in place back in 1933 that preserved the beneficial owner heirship that existed back during that time of your ancestors, and it allows you to go back in time and pull those values forth into your paperwork today. This is what a grantee does. A grantee is responsible for correcting the record. That's what the grantee does. And so when you hear people, educators out here, they're dealing with, secure party creditor, state national, American national, one of the things that they're missing and they're not talking about is how to operate in grantee capacity utilizing the trust, where you have to correct the record and you have to place yourself in receivership of all of the res that's being given to you by all of these banks. Right? So there's a lot that goes along with that. But the grantee has to make sure that the estate is being properly administered and that the beneficial owner is placed in position. So there's a lot of things that need to be done. There's a lot of things. So how many of you would be interested in learning these principles? Because it's a lot to learn. It really is a lot to learn. And I don't know if I answered your question, Mikhail, but you know me, I can keep going. I can keep going.
Well, definitely, what it boils down to is, there's education that's required for those who want to move in a different way based on truth and fact, not fiction, and definitely not the lies. The process is hard for some people because they have to unlearn the lies. Because, see, you have built on top of lies, and you built skyscrapers on top of lies. And so now, because you have to unlearn, you have to tear down the skyscraper, start all over. And a lot of people would rather just continue to live the lie instead of destroying the skyscraper and starting all over. Mm-hmm. And when you are 40, 60 years old, it makes it harder for you to do that. If you look at Scripture and you think about the children of Israel when they were in Egypt in bondage. Now think about this too. They were in bondage. Do you think all of them believed they were in bondage? No, because they could get up, go to work, come home, do what they wanted to do. Kind of like you today. You can get up, go to work, go home, go to the store, go to the gym, go to a show, and come home. You don't even realize that you are in bondage. You don't realize that you are in a box. You don't realize that you are a prisoner, a slave, because you don't know what it really feels like when the picture that you see is one of, oh, I bought a house, I bought a car. Did you really? Oh, I'm going to take me a vacation. Okay. You know, all these things that you are able to do tells you that you are not in bondage, that you are not a slave. It's all about perspective. And the psychology, the programming is in play that has you thinking that you are not in bondage. Now, until they come and knock on your door and start questioning you and apprehending you, and you're saying it's against the law, I didn't do anything wrong, that's when you start to realize you actually have no control. See, that control is very important in the life that we live, in the country that we are in. But when they take that freedom that you think you have, physically take that freedom, then you're starting to cry, you want help, and you want somebody to sympathize with you and your situation or scenario. And then you start to realize it's not what I thought it was. It's not what I thought it was. And now you get to a point where you realize there's something I don't know because I don't understand how they're able to take advantage of me. I thought I had control and I don't. They took everything in my bank account. I have a zero balance. I had $16,000 in my checking and savings combined. Now I have $0 in my accounts. What control do you have? I can't pay my bills. They took all my money. Really? You want somebody to represent you? Was it really yours in the first place? Some people would say it wasn't yours. Some people would say that it is the creator of the Federal Reserve notes and they can take it whenever they want to. So you continue to remain in that status until they decide to strip you of anything of value that you think you have. And then you're the ones that's going to come back later and say, hey, I need to talk to you. You said something and I need to understand what you were talking about, because this happened to me, that happened to me. That's what happens to a majority of people. Something happens, crisis comes into their life, chaos comes into their life, and when that takes place, now they want to hear, they want to know. They think they have all the questions now. Why wait? Why react when you actually should be pro, not reactive? That's going to be very important as we move forward, because there's two groups here we're looking at, maybe three, and we're really focused on one group, and those are the leaders. Those are the ones who say, you know, I've learned a lot, I've seen a lot, I've lived a lot, and I know there's a lot that I don't know. And it sounds like, it appears that they know something that can help me change my situation or scenario. Yes, there is a lot that we can help you with to change your situation. And it's not just for you, it's for your family, for your future generations, your descendants, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. This is not just for you. But I mentioned earlier, now I want to kind of just mention this. The children of Israel went into the wilderness, and their mindset was still debtor mindset. Their mindset was still slave mentality. They were still conditioned. Moses took them out of Egypt into the wilderness, but they took their mindset with them. Many people listening this evening are transitioning from a debtor mindset to a creditor mindset, and they won't let go of that slave mentality. And so you have to ask yourself, what do you do with those people? You let them die where they are. And that's what happened with the children of Israel. The older generations died in the wilderness, never got a chance to even see the promised land, much less step into it. Those who stepped into the promised land were the youth of the day. They were young. And so, as I said before, that conditioning is so rooted and grounded in you, you can't let go of it. It's holding onto you with dear life, or for dear life. And if you are above a certain age, you would be classified in that same group that died in the wilderness. So I spent a lot of time with the youth because I know they are as conditioned as the 80-year-olds, the 70-year-olds, 60-year-olds, the 50-year-olds. And as I said, that conditioning is powerful. The programming is powerful. You'd rather remain where you are than go where the Most High is leading you. And you will find yourself on the sideline with Lucifer. Lucifer is a debtor. We, or some of us, I would say, believe that we are a debtor. And so we're right over there where Lucifer wants us, believing that we are a debtor, living a slave mindset. Everything we do is from a tail position, from the bottom up, and we're suffering And we've gotten so used to the suffering, we don't know what else to do. You're in a coma, and you don't know how to come out of it. Now, there's more information we definitely wanted to share with you this evening. We didn't get through everything because I wanted to talk to you about the birthright. That's very important. And understanding what took place when you came into this world. You know, I mentioned to you that you came into this world as a creditor, but somewhere along the way, you converted to a debtor, or you converted to a slave mindset. Over a period of time, the programming, the conditioning, you went from a creditor mindset to a slave mindset. That was a combination, yes, of the programming, but it also included your parents, grandparents, also transitioning you from that creditor mindset to a slave mindset or a debtor mindset. When you were created as a creditor, came into this world decided, because they knew they couldn't handle you, they couldn't control you, because they were not on your level. This world is not on your level. These corporations are not on your level, on our level. So what did they do? They had to create a debtor entity that is on their level. Now, as I mentioned before, you know, this information is very vital that we share this information with you. There's a lot that we have not even touched on yet. But Nadiva, is there anything else you want to share with them this evening? Because I could go on for the next 2 hours now, because I'm ready to really get into some stuff. But I know, you know, we may have to cut this short and take up on the next call where we left off.
I think you've covered a good majority of what needed to be covered this evening. One of the last things that I wanted to just touch on briefly is I wanted to read the description of one of the courses that we have available inside of the private network, right? Because, you know, we come up on these calls every week, and very rarely do we speak about the importance and the magnitude of the education at hand, right, in terms of what people can do. So I'm going to move this over, and hopefully you all can see my screen, right? You have to let me know. I know you all on TikTok can't see the screen, but for those of you that are watching live on YouTube, you should be able to see. So let me just read this to you so that you all can understand the type of education that's available. You know, it's just sort of kind of like a preview, right? And so you've heard us speak about dealing with the CUSIP numbers on your individual accounts. I think we spoke about that briefly. I think we just had a call the other day where we spoke about that. But the title of this particular course is CUSIP Mastering and Enforcement, a Comprehensive Guide. It says this course dives into the intricate process of legal enforcement, trust office procedures, and the essential role of the CUSIP number in securitization. Tailored for paralegals, legal professionals, and trust officers, participants will gain a hands-on skills in document preparation, IRS interaction, and management of negotiable instruments. The curriculum combines practical steps, agency interaction strategies, and deep understanding of the legal instruments, equipping learners with the necessary tools for effective trust and estate management. All right, so the course objectives are to understand the fundamentals of legal enforcement and notary practices in financial settings, navigate the trust office procedures while efficiently utilizing CUSIP numbers and securitization, prepare and manage critical IRS forms and ensure compliance with relevant regulations, construct effective affidavits and escalation protocols and legal scenarios, analyze and apply knowledge of negotiable instruments, including their types, uses, and legal implications. So this is not for play. Let me just say it like that. There's a lot of steps and things that people will need to do to be able to get up to this level where they can even understand something of this magnitude. But just know that the work that we're doing is very serious, and we're looking for serious people. Now, we had a call with the group over the weekend, and one of the things that stood out to me the most is that the people in the group really don't understand that this is not something that you can do by yourself. Right? And so when we come out here in the public and we do these presentations, we have to let you all know that we're looking for competent trustees. We're looking for people that can help facilitate the administration of the states. Now, all of the things that we spoke about earlier as it relates to the grantee, that's not something that you're going to be able to do by yourself. You're going to need people. You're going to need individuals and trustees to sign off on documents. You don't want all of your documentation to show the same signatures. And see, this is some of the stuff that people just simply don't think about. The grantee can come on the scene and do what he or she needs to do, but you cannot do this by yourself. And you don't want to give the impression that you are alone out here. You can't do that. You have to create your network and work with people that are competent to support you. So whether they're witnessing a document, they're signing off on something as your trustee, you've been able to appoint them as a party to your trustee under charge of the affairs. There's a lot of things that need to be done, and you just simply cannot do this by yourself. You need competent trustees. And so this is part of the reason when people want to come into our community or our network, we do background checks. So you got to ask yourself a question. Is there any other educational platform or educator or guru out there that's doing background checks on the people that they pull in as a part of their program? No. I can answer the question for you. The answer is no. There's nobody else out there that's doing background checks. You have to ask yourself a question. Why are they doing background checks? Clearly, there's something serious on the table that we need to deal with. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and the pickings are slim, folks. Slim pickings, all right? And so we're doing these calls week after week to let people know, yes, we're still here, but at the same time, we're looking to grow long-lasting relationships where we can place people in trustee capacity and you can get compensated for the work that you do on someone's estate. So we have to think about the bigger picture in this, all right? And so education is going to be key in everything that you do. You have to be able to hold your own in terms of your education, right? And so I just wanted to bring that out to give you all a sneak peek preview into one of the courses, because we have many courses that's available on the private network. How would you feel if you had the ability to take your process and run it through a trust, an AI digital trust that has been converted, where it will take your process and develop the enforcement strategy for you? Is that something that you all would want to have access to? Seriously, would you want to have access to something like that? Instead of trying to figure out how to write a basic affidavit on your own. See, I've heard people say that they have converted their AI, but what did you feed it? How did you program it? That's the question. What type of information is your AI spitting out? Does it lie to you when it wants to? These are the types of things that we have had to deal with in our private network, right? So for those of you that are watching online, here are some additional instructions. Stay connected. Let me ask you all a question for those of you that are on the Zoom. Who invited you to this call? How did you find out about us? Do me a favor and put that in the chat. For those of you that are watching on YouTube, same thing. Just go ahead and put that in the chat. Who referred you to the channel? Who referred you to the TikTok? Who referred you? All right. Check your emails. Make sure that you are checking your spam folders and checking your emails so that none of our emails are going to go to spam. All right, so here I'm going to put this in the Zoom chat. This is the email address that you're going to want to add this email address to your contact list on whatever email you use, whether it's Outlook, Gmail, Yahoo, whatever. You're going to want to add that email address to your contact list to ensure that our emails do not go to spam. All right. Now, if you've been referred to a website, you want to make sure, or if you refer someone to the website, make sure to remind them to put in a valid email address and a valid telephone number so that we can text them. Many people have missed out on communications because they put in bogus information. You have to put in real information. If you want to go on this journey, put in information that's good information so that we can contact you, so that we can call you and have a discussion to sort of kind of see where you are. All right. Now, for those of you that have given us your email address, make sure that you are checking your emails because there are some free course materials that are coming to you in the emails these are free courses that you can take for free. All you have to do is click the links in the email. It's going to take you right to the course. All right. All right. So stay connected. If you were referred here, get back to the person that referred you. Send us a message. When you go to the website, there is a bot down at the bottom. There's like a chat feature down at the bottom of the website. You can actually go on the website that you were referred to and ask questions directly to us through the website as well. Just stay connected. All right. So we're going to be here again next week. We invite you all to come back to be a part of the discussion, Genesis Gateway Roundtable discussion, right? Just come back week after week. We're only going to be here. I think we have another 4 sessions, folks. 4 or 5. Don't quote me on that. We only have another 4 or 5 sessions where we're going to actually be doing these public calls like this, right? So we're not going to be here forever. So whatever questions you all have, you want to ask them now. For those of you that are watching on YouTube, put your questions in the chat or send an email to the administrator of that channel. Either way, ask questions, stay connected, check your emails, and check your text messages, okay? But I think that's all we have for the discussions this evening. Mikhail, do you have any final thoughts before we close?
No final thoughts outside of the fact that there's a lot more that we do want to share. So, as Nadiva mentioned, stay connected because you want to get some of your questions answered. Some of the questions that you didn't initially have, but now you have some questions that you want to ask. And we're going to be answering those questions as well.
Yeah. Just stay connected. You'll come to find if you connect with us, you're going to hear things and see things that's not like any other network you've been a part of. If you've done any other process out there, you're going to quickly see that we are very different and set apart to what you're used to seeing and hearing. And this is the truth. We have been out here for years. We've seen things. You're talking about years of interacting with people and groups and broken promises and all of these things. You all need to have discernment to be able to identify when something is different. And you got to go and take it up in prayer with the Most High to ask the Most High if what we are telling you is true. That's how confident we are in what it is that we have. You got to have a conversation with the Most High. We had someone that had been conversing with us for over a year and a half, and they were still asking certain questions. And I'm like, and I said to them, I actually said this to them. I said, if in a year and a half that we've been speaking to you and you have not yet once taken anything that we have said up in prayer with the Most High to know that this is where He is positioning you to be, then you are wasting your time. Straight up. You're wasting your time. You have to bring the Most High into your experience. You have to. If you don't, it's not going to work. All right? So that's all we have for you all this evening. Thank you all so much for taking the time out to join the conversations. Make sure you stay plugged in and watch your emails, and definitely add that email address to your contact list so that our emails do not go to spam. All right? Thank you so much for your time. You all have a great and wonderful evening and a prosperous week. We will see you next week at the same time, same channel. All right? Shalom, everyone.